Y'all, it seemed like there was a complete lull in the true crime world for a minute, right? But behind the scenes, first of all, tons of wild trials have been coming out, which seems to be always the case towards the end of the year. But then also behind the scenes, a lot of these cases that we do follow, there's stuff going on with them, but just not things that are like way out there. And some of them are way out there. You know, the Bryan Kohberger stuff hasn't slowed down and any of that stuff, right? So what I want to do today is just go over a few cases that I kind of watch in the background and that I follow, just to talk about some of those updates, what's been going on with them, etc., etc. Okay, now I don't know about where you're at, but here is cold. So I've got my true crime blankie, grab yours if you got it, and I got my warm cup of coffee with my little golden girls here. So grab your cup of Java or chocolate milk or whatever you want, buckle up, and let's jump into today's video.
Hey, 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 welcome to the Sofa Squad, sipping from the cup at hey.
Now hold on everybody, let's do a quick sofa sidebar now. Keep in mind, ain't no cop, ain't no doctor, ain't no lawyer, ain't no therapist, ain't none of that fancy credentialed stuff, okay? Only credentials we got up in here is my sass, and this sofa. Now keep in mind also, I'm just giving my opinions on very public information, so do your own research, come to your own opinions, and drop them off in the comment section. And while you're down there, if you do like what you see here at the Sofa Squad, drop a little like, drop a little comment, drop a little share. It helps the channel out immensely. Now let's get edition. Hello Sofa Squad and welcome back to the sofa. It's a sofa. There's a cup on the ground. My name's Paul. Y'all, my name is Paul if you're new to the channel. If you're not new to the channel, my name, I guess, is still Paul. Okay. Now, like I said, we're going to be going over several cases today. You know, Barry Morphew, Bryan Kohberger, you know, several little things going on here. So what I'm going to do is kind of introduce each case for people who aren't familiar with it, like a quick 60-second overview, and then just talk about some of the things that are of interest to me that have been going on with said cases recently. Now, first things first, I want to jump into Barry Morphew, okay? This just is like, I can't with this. So let's talk about who Barry Morphew is and more importantly, who Suzanne Morphew is. So back in 2020, Barry's wife, Suzanne Morphew, vanished on Mother's Day. Now, this was out in Colorado, and there's a lot of story that he came up with, but at first it looked like a very simple missing person case, but it very quickly spiraled into something much deeper and much darker. An investigation zeroed in on Barry, pointing to odd timelines, deleted messages, a marriage that was falling apart behind the scenes, you name it. Now, he was eventually charged with murder, but sadly, those charges were dropped when prosecutors said they needed more time to analyze the new evidence. So it seemed like Barry possibly had gotten away with something, if anything. This is all alleged, of course. But then Barry was rearrested. Now, since then, he's been able to lower bond, make bail, the whole 9 yards. Now, recently, some scandal involved in the case was another YouTuber had aired one of the hearings, and so now the judge has cut that off. So we can't see any of the hearings and whatnot. I'm not sure if this extends to the actual trial. I will be gutted if that's the case, but nonetheless, there's no streaming of hearings, you know, for now. But let's look at a quick clip here and then talk about some of the things that have been going on.
Yeah, today's appearance just a few minutes long, but in those few minutes, we learned when a trial could start and also when Barry Morphew will have to make a plea, guilty or not guilty, for the first-degree murder charges involving his wife's death. Barry Morphew appearing in jeans, a collared button-down and blazer Monday afternoon as his attorney asks the judge for more time.
The defense is continuing to make its way through the voluminous discovery.
The state not objecting, telling the judge their paralegals are helping Barry's lawyers find what they're looking for in the discovery phase. Morphew faces a first-degree murder charge related to the death of his wife, Suzanne, who disappeared Mother's Day of 2020.
We have no objection to a continuance. We're still hopeful to try this case in the summer.
That is a final continuance. I will expect a plea to be entered. It's fine if that plea is not guilty.
That next court hearing is set for January 12th at 1:30 p.m.
So January 12th, we're going to get a plea, you know, or not a plea deal, but, you know, he's going to say guilty, not guilty, whatever he's trying to do, right? Now, I want to just say a couple of things here with that. Number one is I'm watching this clip and I'm thinking this to myself, and I'm just like, this is, first of all, let me say it, this is alleged. He has not been found guilty of anything, right? So we're going to pretend in a world that, like, say he's gone through the thing or whatever and been found guilty. Okay, and this could go for any defendant like this. I guess one thing that's different with Barry is that he had or has a lot of money, right? Okay, I'm like, was it worth it? Years later, we're still here, still in court fighting this. It's had to have financially drained him. Now, if he did do this and if this all comes out true, I don't think he would then be like, oh gosh, I wish I hadn't, taken her life because I miss her. I wish I hadn't gotten caught is probably more like it. But, it's like, is it worth it? Was it worth it? And the answer might be no to someone like that who commits a crime like this. I don't know. I would personally think it wouldn't be. Now, we don't 100% know, but we have a very good idea of kind of what took place. And it does seem like Suzanne was probably seeing somebody and talking to a dude or whatever behind the scenes. She was planning on leaving Barry. This didn't bode well. He came home, something ensued, a little chase, a little, tranquilizer, whatever, right? So the end result, though, is her life was taken, and it does seem like all signs point to Barry. So one thing I'm curious about, especially like in the comment section or whatever, is does anybody know, does this man still have any kind of money on him? Right? How could he even have money? Now, last time he was out, there was that whole scenario. We had a girlfriend and, he had gone to the house to get a package. I think they sold that house that, we know where the crime took place allegedly and whatnot. So I'm just curious, like, what is this man doing for money? Like, is he even able to work? Like, where are we at with this, right? I personally think we're going to see a not guilty plea, and I think that his attorneys are just going to stall this, and that this could go on for a very long time. I mean, they haven't even entered a plea yet. So it's like, we're still there. Now, as far as I know, also at the time of this recording, and this is November of 2025, his daughters stand by him, right? And that's been a point of contention with a lot of people. When I reference that, I'm talking about, content being made with commentary on it, comment sections, things of this nature. But as far as we know, they are standing by him for the time being. So this is a trial, like I said, we're going to 100% be watching, and we've watched over the years behind the scenes. I don't know how it will play out if the judge is like, yep, no, we can't even have anybody in the courtroom, as far as like streaming the trial goes and whatnot, or if that's just a pre-trial thing. I'm curious if or have any more intel on that, because I would be curious to know, are we going to be able to see said trial? So anyways, let's move on to the next one. Now, this next case, y'all, do I need to even say anything else? I mean, come on, right? Shout out to Amy. These are just so adorable. Someone sent these to me, and it's funny how many people reference, oh, you have the Erin Patterson mushrooms crochet behind you. How we all know this. Also, like, another thing that is synonymous with the person who did the crime, corn rake. If you know, you know, right? If not, Google it. The first picture that comes up, at least it was for a while, is the dude who killed his wife with a corn rake. Okay? It's just so wild when these things take precedence of we now associate mushrooms and death cap mushrooms specifically with Erin Patterson. And that being said, that's the next update we're talking about is Erin Patterson. Who is Erin Patterson, you might be wondering? Well, I'm gonna give you a quick overview. Erin Patterson was one of the most wildest and unsettling true crime stories to come out of Australia in years. In July 2023, Erin hosted a lunch in the small town of Leongatha. On the menu, according to investigators, was a beef Wellington allegedly made with death cap mushrooms. 4 relatives attended, 3 died within days from fatal liver damage, and the lone survivor spent months recovering. From the start, the police focused on Erin because she was the only person at that lunch who didn't get sick. They pointed to inconsistent statements, alleged deception around where the mushrooms came from, and behavior they said didn't match someone caught in a tragic accident. Erin, meanwhile, maintained that the deaths were an accident and that she never intentionally poisoned anyone. Fast forward, the prosecutors charged her with multiple counts of murder and attempted murder. She was eventually found guilty, and now she is appealing. So with that, let's take a look at a quick little news clip.
We begin with the mushroom murder appeal. Erin Patterson giving the court 7 reasons why her convictions should be overturned after she was sentenced to life in jail over the notorious lunch in Leongatha.
Well, Sophie, it's been nearly 2 months since Erin Patterson was handed that life sentence, and now we know how she's going to appeal it. As you said, she's given 7 grounds for her appeal. I won't go through all of them, but the first one relates to the jury and how they were housed in the same hotel as police, prosecutors and members of the media during the course of that 11-week trial in regional Victoria. She's also disputed the relevance of a lot of the evidence the prosecution relied on during that trial, trial, including that her phone signal was picked up by cell phone towers near 2 locations where death cap mushrooms were spotted, and messages she sent to friends on Facebook about disputes with family members, some of whom died after that lunch. Now, she's arguing that none of this evidence should have been presented to the jury. Now, another reason she's given for appeal is the cross-examination process, which she's called unfair and oppressive, and she says it's led to a substantial miscarriage of justice, which is pretty interesting to note, given that she chose to take the witness stand during her own trial, which she didn't have to do. So this sentence is now facing 2 appeals, one from Erin Patterson and the other from the prosecution, who are arguing that she should have been given a harsher sentence, that the one she was given at 33 years wasn't enough, and she should have been handed life without parole. So there's no date has been set yet for either appeal, but they're both expected to take place sometime next year.
Oh, Erin, oh, Erin, oh, Erin. So a couple of things with this. Now, I will say this. I personally would have a problem if I knew that my jury was housed in the same hotel as all these people, right? I would be like, can we not find a different place to sequester them? Like, why are they all there, right? Just for the simple fact of I'm thinking, like, what happens if you're like going down to get something and you overhear something? There's a lot of room for error. So I would have an issue with that personally, okay? Now, again, we might find out throughout this because I don't know at this point, and it might come out where it's like, well, the jury was sequestered, and I'm making this up. The jury was sequestered to floor 12, and there was guards, so they were never freely moving around, and none of these people had access to them. They weren't going downstairs, for example, to the lobby by themselves, unaccompanied by people. So that would change things up a bit for me. But if it's just like, well, people are milling around or whatever, I would have an issue with that. Now, the oppressive cross-examination, all this type of stuff, I mean, literally, it's like, girl, you chose to take the stand. And I understand that on the surface level, this case is complicated because it's so completely random how she killed these people, right? And because of the way the court systems are, and I'm not saying that in a negative connotation, but I'm just simply stating it in a comparison to what we're used to here in the States with how these, places work and whatnot. We didn't get the information as like the general public, as the prospective jurors, if you will. So it was like, we didn't know all the information out. So once the jury heard all this, to me, the evidence was very plain. Like, oh, this is exactly what happened. So knowing that, and for Erin to be like, hold my beer, hold my mushroom, I'm going to get on the stand and talk my way out of this, which is to me most likely the case in point, right? These personality types always think they can talk their way out of it, and it's usually their undoing, okay? You just look at Sarah Boone, countless people who take the stand, and Nancy Brophy, Erin Patterson, they want to talk their way out of it, and it never ends in their favor. So with Erin, we're going to keep an eye on this. Now, again, you already heard, like, another thing that's different is the prosecution can come back and say, yeah, we want to appeal it too. Give her more time, right? She might mess around and get a life sentence. Granted, the sentence she got, in my opinion, is a life sentence. She'll never go out again. And so we'll see. And I felt like the judge, or whatever it's specifically called over there, was pretty lenient and took some things into consideration that people weren't really considering. And that's one reason why the prosecution's kind of like, hey, we want a stiffer sentence. Some of that was where she was being held. They take into consideration like, hey, look, this is really, a lot. So we're going to, put that on the board. But for the most part, this was a horrifying death that she caused. It also looks like she tried to do this before to Simon, her estranged husband or ex-husband at this point, I guess. So yeah, we'll follow this and see, do I think she'll get the appeal? I mean, I have no idea. Personally, I wouldn't think so, because again, it's just like, I mean, she's shown no accountability for it. Now, mind you, I get everybody has their right to an appeal, and anybody would, right? So I'm not holding that part against her, because anybody is going to do whatever they can to get out of there. It is what it is. So we shall see. But until then, let's go on to the next case. Now, this next case comes with a trigger warning, because this does involve, well, I want to say a child. What started off as a child, now young adult, but who knows mentally where this person is at. What I'm talking about is the Kimberly Sullivan case. This is where she held her adopted son captive for, like, I think, venture to say decades. So let's talk very quickly about who the case is about and what's going on. So Kimberly Sullivan, who lived in Indiana, is accused of imprisoning her adopted son inside her home for 24 21 years. According to investigators, the abuse began when he was a child and continued well into adulthood. Detectives said that Kimberly kept him isolated, controlled his movements, restricted his access to the outside world, and created an environment where he had no ability to escape or advocate for himself. The court documents describe the living conditions as degrading, dehumanizing, horrible. Now, the case cracked open when police conducted a welfare check and found the victim, now in his 20s, showing clear signs of chronic confinement, long-standing psychological trauma, you name it. He was cut off from school, medical care, any normal social contact. Now, Kimberly is facing a stack of charges, and these are all related to, of course, neglect, criminal confinement, abuse, you name it. So let's take a look, and we're going to kind of break this one down and talk about the clip because it's a little bit longer, and it's going to give you a little bit more of a where we were at and where we're at now of the case.
More reaction to the story of the local man who told police he was held captive by his stepmom for more than 20 years.
Fast forward to February 17th, Sullivan's stepson escaped from the home he says she held him captive for decades.
Who else is in here?
My stepson is in here.
He told first responders he lit the fire intentionally inside the Blake Street home so he could finally be free. Police say he was just 68 pounds when he was found. The arrest warrant says he had limited access to food and water and was locked in his room for up to 24 hours.
Okay, so as you see here, she's like, oh my gosh, can you imagine being at the point of lighting the house on fire to get help, basically? I mean, this is just like, what? The neighbors had to be like, what has been going on over there? And you see how frantic she is. She knows, I would assume at this point, that she is in major trouble. Let's switch over to News Nation and look at a couple of things from Ashley Banfield.
You probably remember what he and Connecticut prosecutors and firefighters say he was escaping. 21 years of forced confinement in an upper room. The man's alleged tormentor was his stepmother, Kimberly Sullivan, who is now charged with unlawful restraint, kidnapping, and other charges, and who today was in court to demand some information about her alleged victim. Specifically, she wants to know his new name and his new identity and address. And in court papers, he's merely referred to as the letter S. Stepmother also wants to know where he's been living, and she wants the medical records, which by law, you probably know, under HIPAA are private. But Kimberly Sullivan played the Sixth Amendment card, our constitutional right to face your accuser. And guess what? She won.
Y'all, because as Ashley was describing this, and I love Ashley Banfield, as she was describing this, I was like, okay, this sounds like it's the whole thing of face your accuser, y'all. And I mean, and again, I 100% get that, right? But this is obviously, in my non-legal opinion, a loophole in the situation. Why does she need to have this information? Okay, now this is sofa speculation, okay? This is just me, like, whatever. She's gonna try and manipulate him. She's gonna try and get a hold of him, right? Like, in some way or fashion. The mental hold that she has on this man is probably so extreme. He's not known another world besides her. This is shocking.
The defense was granted limited access to the stepson's new, and we're only assuming better life, and the rest of us are getting a disturbing peek at his old life. The New York Post acquired a trove of never-before-seen photos of Kimberly Sullivan's home after, and we want to be clear, this is after the fire. That's the stairway, presumably leading up to where S says he was forced to live. There's also the kitchen, and this is a tough picture because it's where first responders say they found a 68-pound man in a fetal position under a table. But it does get more strange. There's a woman's face painted on a bright pink wall in the living room, and there's also a doll that is hanging from a swing from the ceiling.
Here's the thing with this too. I mean, I haven't seen these pictures yet. These are absolutely creepy, of course. Now, you heard Ashley point out, like, this is after the fire or whatever, but the conditions were described as like these horrendous conditions that she was keeping him in. Now, we don't know at this point who painted the woman's face, the doll, the this, the that, like, was this Kimberly? Of course the house is gonna have this, in my opinion, like, dark energy. Come at 68-pound, 21-year-old, that's insane. So it will be curious if we ever learn some of the details details of what life was like. Like, was she doing creepy stuff? I could see her collecting dolls, almost like he was a doll, right? So maybe she had this fascination, or maybe he knew how to draw and he painted that face. I don't know.
Sullivan's attorney says she never mistreated her stepson and wants no more involvement in his current life other than what any criminal defendant is entitled to. So I guess that could be considered quite a win today, that the judge has granted you name, address, medical information. But I said it earlier, I'll say it again. How is any of that going to help you in your defense of these extraordinarily serious charges she's facing?
And what's important to be clear here is we were not asking for anything out of the ordinary. We were not asking for anything crazy. It was the state that was asking to withhold certain information from the defense. Every defendant is entitled to know the name and address of not only their accuser, but the witnesses. So we were asking for what we were entitled to receive. What happened today was the judge applied the law appropriately. We identified a number of issues, constitutional primarily. So this paves the way for us to finally get these medical records that we've been waiting months for.
And this is so obviously Ashley's talking to the lawyer here. It's very interesting to me when these defense lawyers go on a media blitz and whatnot. Corey Richard's lawyer did this recently. I'll do a separate video on her. There's so much going on with that. But again, on one level, the dude's right. It's like, okay, by the law, and this is what, you know, a lot of defense attorneys and state as well, but like especially defense, where it's like they're making sure that the law is followed. And yes, technically they have a right to this information, right? My question would be, will it be mishandled? Will it be abused? I'm not saying that the defense lawyer would do this, but by Kimberly herself, right? If she's like, I don't want anything else to do with him other than like what I have the natural right to, which is like, no, my accuser, all that. Okay, well, let's keep it that way. Because again, my fear would be any level of contact, whatever mental hold she has on him, could sway him in testifying.
Trying to figure out what you can gain by knowing his name and address. I get it with the medical records. If he says he was 68 pounds, I get where you're probably going.
Well, I'm still waiting to see some records that are actually going to reflect that. And we're going to dive into that. I mean, there's plenty of explanations, potential explanations as to why he was 68 pounds. What we're going to have at trial is testimony that he had access to food and water and was free to eat and drink every day.
If you have to explain away a lot of things, including the 68 pounds, why there's locks on the doors inside the house, and I think one of the hardest things, other than the 68-pound fact that you're going to have to work with here, John, is the fact that he says there were straws that he had to affix out a window so that he could urinate in a bottle and get the urine to go out the house and down the side of the house because he had no toileting facilities. You're smiling as though that's a lie. Are you saying that that's a lie?
I've seen no evidence of that, and I cannot wait to cross-examine on that point.
Y'all, now we're not even in court yet, okay? So I get this. It's he said, she said. Full stop at we're going to explain away the 68-pound thing. How do you explain that this kid's never been anywhere and been held captive? There's a lot, like Ashley said, she called him out. There's a lot of explaining away to be done. You know, and then the whole thing about the straw, and he's sitting here laughing like, you know, we're going to do this. I've seen no evidence. I've seen that. And again, let's have our day in court. I mean, you hear them, they're taking this to trial. How do you explain away at bare minimum, pretend he could eat food and all that, whatever? Where has this man been for 21 years, right? Like school, and like, I want all that answered for me.
If this goes to trial, he has to take that stand. He could tell us all about how he engineered that, whatever he claims to have engineered.
Do you expect this to end up being more of a he said, she said? Because the evidence that is listed out from police and obviously in the prosecutor's case, and they haven't even, listed it all yet. There's still more to come. So when you say he had access to bathrooms, plenty of bathrooms in the house, is this just, that's because Kimberly says so and he says something else?
It's a he said, she said. I know of no one that's going to corroborate the claims that he's making.
Ashley's asking the hard-hitting questions we want to know. Yeah, it's like, this is a he said, she said. And you already heard him, like, he's going to have to take the stand and imagine this. And again, I'm trying to remain neutral and fair. We'll see what happens when this goes to trial and the opening statements and everyone's laying it out. Like, here's our story. Imagine how this will go over to a jury if whatever the evidence is showing is leaning toward she did this, right? She is guilty of what is being accused. And this young man takes the stand, and this guy tries to rough him up and explain away how he chose to be 68 pounds, how he's lying about having to tinkle out of the window or whatever. How do you think that's going to go over? Already looking at this guy's, is the word cadence? Like his whatever, you know, the smirking, the general vibe. I'm like, oh, no, this ain't going to end well. People don't want to see a victim, especially a young person. I understand the guy's like a young adult at this point, but probably mentally not. And this started off when he was obviously a kid or whatever. So it just, what I'm getting at with that is it makes it worse when it's a child or what, someone like a very vulnerable person, right? People don't want to see a victim bamboozled on the stand, roughed up, this, that, and the other. Okay, you have to delicately dance. And again, I'm doing a lot of speculation here. We haven't even gotten to trial yet, right? This might not even happen. But just from this interview alone, I'm like, yeah, I'm very curious to see how this goes. So again, this is a case we will be following over the, I'm venture to say years as it leads its way through the court system, especially with the way the courts go these days where everything's just postponed for years on end, and this is just how it happens, right? So anyways, let's move on to the last one. Mr. Bryan Kohberger. The Bryan Kohberger case centers on the November 2022 murders of 4 University of Idaho students. It literally absolutely shook the country and still is. The attack was brutal, fast, and carried out while the victims were asleep or just moments away from it. Investigators eventually focused on Bryan Kohberger, a criminology PhD student living across state lines in Washington. The evidence that led to his arrest included cell phone data placing him near the home, surveillance footage of a white Hyundai Elantra linked to him, DNA recovered from a knife sheath found at the scene, and a trail of behavioral red flags in the hours and days after the murder. He was eventually arrested in Pennsylvania and extradited to Idaho, where he was charged with the 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. Now, earlier in 2025 in July, he did plead guilty to all 4 murder counts and the burglary charge as part of a deal that removed the death penalty from the table. He got 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Now, the Bryan Kohberger case, like I said, it shocked, I would venture to say, the world at this point, if the world follows it, but certainly the country, and certainly Idaho, and clearly, certainly the families of the victims, right? Now, this case has been so tumultuous from start to finish, right? There's been huge reactions over the plea deal that he took. There's been huge reactions over every dynamic of it. They've been slowly releasing the evidence and whatnot, and so this is just, it keeps going and going and going and going. Some people feel like Bryan didn't do it. Some people feel like the roommates had something to do with it. Some people feel like it was 100% Bryan. It's still a case divided. Now, let's take a quick look at some clips here from his most recent, again, this is like November 5th, I believe he was back in court over restitution. So let's take a quick look at some clips and then we'll talk about it.
Bryan Kohberger trying to get out of paying some restitution to the victims' families.
He reportedly owes about $300,000 in fines and restitution payments to the families of the 4 University of Idaho students murdered back in 2022.
The hearing took place. Key takeaways.
Yeah, well, there were some big bombshells in court today. Let's begin with this one. Prosecutors were seeking an additional $30,000 in restitution for travel expenses incurred by the victims' families. But today, the state admitted that they were mistaken and cannot seek travel expenses per the plea agreement. Instead, they can only ask for some funeral expenses, bringing the total down from $30,000 to about $3,000.
So what the state is actually requesting today is just additional restitution for the funeral-related expenses, which are the urns for the families.
Given that the state has clarified its position that it's only seeking reimbursement for the urns.
Now, per the plea agreement that he signed, Kohberger has been ordered to pay nearly $250,000 in court fees, with an additional of $80,000 to be split among the victims' families of Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana. It was revealed in court today that Kohberger has a history of getting some big deposits in his inmate account, which we'll get to that in just a second. The killer receiving 5-figure deposits at times. His defense claims that the deposits were from family and friends to stay in communication after his arrest, but before his plea deal and his change of plea. But prosecutors want to make sure that the confessed killer turns over any monies that he may get in the future by working in the prison or any inheritance. They also want to block any loophole in the future of Kohberger possibly selling his story, while his defense was quick to point out that would be against Idaho law. Kohberger was not present in court today. You saw all the attorneys. They were remote. And the judge did not make any ruling today. He took all the arguments under advisement and will issue a ruling later.
Let's talk about it for a second. So first of all, the whole thing about like, okay, we were wrong about the money to pay the parents and family victims back and whatnot. I mean, it's always just like, you know, there's no dollar amount you can put on it, right? I mean, I get that, you know, and it's such a small amount. I'm just like, my God, I'm sure I'm not saying they're upset over the small amount of money, but just like, it's a slap in the face. You know what I mean? In addition to everything else. Now, the other fees and whatnot, I mean, this is like standard protocol, right? There's fees for doing, you know, all the stuff. Now, here's the thing with this. So when they were talking about a couple of things that I want to hit on. Number one, they want to make sure that any money coming in later, so like if he sells a story, inheritance, things of this nature, it's curious because when you think about this, like, oh yeah, you know what, I didn't even think about this. So he's going to be in prison the rest of his life. If his parents leave him any money, you know, they're going to clearly want to get this to go back to restitution. If he has a little job in prison, all this type of stuff. So my personal take on that is the parents are just going to probably leave everything to his sibling. You know what I'm saying? Like, and to avoid any of that, any kind of inheritance, like everything would be just diverted elsewhere. Now, also selling his story. And this is a question I pose for you. What if Bryan Kohberger came and said, I will sell my story and I will give all the money to victim fund, right? Like take all the money for it. Do I think he would do this? No. Would you be okay with him doing that? You see what I'm saying? So it was like, this is going to go to the victims, you know, to pay them back or court cost or whatever. And I'll sell the rights to my story. Here you go. Now, again, that's him because his story could be, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. That's my story. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how that works when you do book deals and things like that. But I was just like, oh, you know, that's just standard protocol though, as far as, you know, not being able to make money off your crime and whatnot. But I understand them wanting to lock that down and make sure that doesn't happen. Also, okay, now as soon as they said this clip, I thought of Christina Randall. I have not watched this video, so I'm literally only going based on a quick flash of a memory that I have right now filming this and the title or whatever, okay? So Christina Randall recently did a video and it was something to the effect of like, our, you know, fans and stuff sending him money. And then this dude, the news anchor here on Court TV, is saying, oh, he's getting 5-figure deposits and whatnot. Now I know there's people out there that follow this case deeply and like track his movements and all that. So if you're one of these people and you have tea on, oh yeah, he's getting massive amounts of money from fans / friends or whatever. What? Because when they said 5 figures, I'm like, what? How? Huh? Where is that money coming from? Even if you think of his parents, like, why would they put that kind of money on his books? That doesn't make sense. Or maybe it does. I don't know. That's wild to me, okay? Here's the thing with these crimes like this, and the financial aspect to it, yeah, he's gonna be paying that back in whatever form, whether it's his little prison job, which you already know they don't make much money from those jobs. And so then if he's getting that honey bun money coming in, right, and they're like, well, we're taking that honey bun money, like how does that work? Is it a percentage of it? If you recall, recently we talked about Lori Daybell, how she went back and she was like, you know, I'm not gonna pay that money to, I think Brandon Boudreaux and that whole end of things over in Arizona. You know, they're talking about like getting that commissary money, okay? So yeah, if Bryan Kohberger is getting thousands of dollars a month from random people, well, of course they're gonna take that money and put it in there. I would question how much they take of it. I would imagine it's a percentage and whatnot. So the Bryan Kohberger case, in my opinion, will never end. It is going to be in a kind of similar fashion like Chris Watts. Right? Now, I know these are two different cases, two different circumstances, two different everything. But with Bryan Kohberger, because of the way this went down, and they kind of read the statement of like, oh, this is what happened, it leaves so much room, a vacuum of questions, and people tend to fill in the answers. And then also you're going to have these situations like this, the court filings of this and that, and then whatever happens to him behind bars, right? I mean, it's kind of like a let's see how well he does. So, that being said, that is all updates I wanted to go over. There's just so many things all of a sudden going on with these cases here at the end of the year, and I'm like, hold on everybody, hold on, we can't be doing these little separate videos or whatnot. But these were the ones that I've gotten the most, like people asking me my opinions on things. And I know I got a lot of opinions on people asking me to speak on the Bryan Kohberger evidence and stuff like that, and a lot of it, like, I don't want to, that's just, I'm not gonna like put those pictures out there and whatnot. There's tons of channels that already do that, right? While some of it is fascinating and interesting, it's, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot. That was a brutal crime. Okay, so anyways, that's it. If there are case updates like this that are little things or cases that you're like, what's going on with this, always drop me an email, let me know. And if I need to, you know, do little update videos like this, if these go over well, we can do more of these. I used to do these before, and we kind of do this on the live chat channel where we talk about a bunch of different case updates and everything. So that being said, if you're still watching, I do appreciate you for doing so. If you could, down in the comment section, drop some little sofas off for myself, Roscoe and Spirit, the boys who are on the sleeping pad, and you, the Sofa Squad, who makes the channel possible. It would not be here without you, and I greatly appreciate you for doing that. Now, until we all meet down in that comment section to go over all this stuff we just talked about, I'll see y'all soon.
I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now, don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to follow me and Roscoe on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.
Welcome to the Sofa Squad, sipping from the cup that, hey, 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 come laugh with the Sofa Squad. Can't roll my damn eyes hard enough.